All you clickers and clackers, it's Adam.
And James.
And welcome to the HBO Boiz Podcast, where we're finally talking about that franchise that HBO hopes win over not only the fans of this stunning game, but new audiences alike, The Last of Us. To say it's been highly anticipated would be an understatement, so without further ado, James, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, welcome everyone. If you're just here joining us now, this is the HBO Boiz The Last of Us Podcast. You might also recognize that there is an official podcast called The Last of Us Podcast. If you got to that one, you were at the wrong one. Welcome to the right one. Good job. You made it.
Welcome to the right one.
If you're joining us, guys, the format's going to be this. First, Adam and I are going to give a brief overview, a review of the episode that won't contain spoilers. Those are for the losers who haven't seen it yet. Get with the times. And then we're going to scene by scene discuss the episode and give our thoughts about each particular moment. And of course, we have to say thanks to our lovely patrons who support the show for us. And by the way, if you become a patron for just a dollar even, you can talk to Adam and I on the Discord and tell us how much you liked or didn't like this episode.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to do that? Just talk to us, normally during your everyday to-day life, because we're on it 24/7 because we don't have a life outside of this.
So,
or maybe we do. I don't know. That remains to be seen.
This is the new HBO joint. It's an adaptation, of course, of a beloved video game franchise. Adam and I are both fans.
It's one of my... We talked about this in the kind of breakdown of the trailer when that first released. It's one of my top games of all time, and the more and more I'm looking at this property and the more I'm seeing the game and the show, I think it's becoming my favorite game the more I think about it. Like, it's just such a passionate story. It's very well told, very well executed, and this show only amplifies that for me.
The stars of this show are, of course, Pedro Pascal, who everyone except Adam will remember is the beloved character Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones Season 4, and he is also the Mandalorian from the Baby Yoda show.
The Baby Yoda show. He's also in the Netflix show Narcos, which was the first time I really understood who he was. And he was great in that. If you've never seen that, you should watch it.
And then eagle-eyed viewers will recognize Bella Ramsey as the moon-faced little lady Mormont in season 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones. And then she's the creepy, derelict orphan girl in season 2 of His Dark Materials, kind of a bit part there. And now... it's her big break. She's Ellie in The Last of Us. And I gotta say, we've talked about this before. I was really worried about her casting, but I thought she was good. I thought she was good in episode 1. In fact, I thought she was great.
Yeah, this was the only thing that I was really concerned about with this show was this casting, because I just didn't know who she was. I didn't know what her repertoire was. I didn't know how she sounded or acted. And it turns out she's pretty damn good. She kind of hits Ellie's voice inflections very well. She hits her whole personality style, kind of the I don't give a shit attitude. I like that. She doesn't look exactly like her. We know that. That's very evident. But I'd rather have someone who acts the part well than someone who looks just like the character but is bad at the role. I'd rather have a likeness, which she absolutely does have.
The only other really famous person in episode 1 is the actress that plays Tess. That's Anna Torv, and she's a longtime TV actor in nothing that I'm familiar with. Mindhunter. I've heard the name Mindhunter.
Same. Never watched it.
No, nothing else about it. Fantastic. So...
Well, you know what? But before you go on, the only other character that I do know, and it's only because I play the game, is the woman who voiced Marlene in the game is also playing the character of Marlene on screen, which is
sick.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So that's Merle Dandridge, I believe is her name. And she obviously looks and sounds very similar to the game. So that was very nice to see and know.
I did not know that. I'm excited to find out. Anyway, to give you guys a spoiler-free review of the show, I thought episode 1 was pretty good. Not, didn't blow me away, but I gotta say, I thought it started out very weakly, and then it really grew on me, just kept getting better and better towards the end.
Pretty good. That's unreal. That's unreal that you say it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
After playing the game and being a fan of the game, this show hit all of the high points of the first act of the game. It added things that we didn't know, backstories of the characters that gave a little bit of light on their motives. They tightened up the story a bit, so it moved along a little bit quicker, which was also nice to see just generally throughout the whole episode. There were shot-for-shot and line-for-line scenes from the game interjected here, and this probably is the most fan servicey adaptations of a video game to a movie or a television show that I've ever seen.
Yes, and I agree with you. The things they adapted from the game came out really good, and it shows that they really cared. They thought, well, the fan base wants to see how it was done in the game. And I think they translated it quite well. I will say, some of the original things which they put into the plot I did not like, and it's not that I don't like them because they're original, you guys. I didn't like them because they weren't very good. And one of them... is
go on.
And we'll get into them deeply, but they added some content towards the beginning that I really thought was lame and boring. And
my God.
Well, I don't want to give anything away until we go scene by scene, but in any case, I thought it started out pretty weakly. As soon as they got to where the actual game begins, which is what I was waiting for, I'd say the show picked up a lot. But even still, there's some more stuff that they added, which not that clever. It's the Game of Thrones syndrome. Only adapted.
Oh my God, here we go. Okay, so if you're talking about the very first scene that we see in the television studio. No, I'm not going to spoil anything.
We're about to go over it, though.
We're not going to spoil anything, but if you're talking about that scene mimics the title sequence of the game in explaining kind of what is going on. So there was an intention to it being so drastically different. Something to note about the game that is different than the show is also the time period. The show takes place... present day is the beginning part of the game. Joel is a young man. That's supposed to be present day, and then the game takes place in the future. Where the show takes place in 2003, and the quarantine and the pandemic, we're in a pandemic, the apocalypse, for lack of a better word, takes place in present day. So there is a time shift too. So seeing that first scene take place in the 60s, I think it fit well for what they were trying to do for the future. If that makes any sense.
I thought visually the show was very impressive. I thought the sets were good. I thought the cinematography was sometimes pretty interesting. I really liked the atmospheric tone of the background music. And when I say background music, I mean it's truly in the background, as it was in the game. Something that annoys me in a lot of shows is overbearing mood-setting music. It's like, man, I can't even hear the dialogue.
I know. I hate that. Too many shows do that. I think House of Dragon did that. And speaking of House of Dragon, before we get into the deep dive, this show is now in second place for the most watched HBO premiere in the last decade, only second to House of Dragon, which I guess makes sense because Game of Thrones, being what it is, and House of Dragon being a spinoff, and this being completely new, that's a feat. HBO has hit many feats here. I'm so excited. I'm so over the moon that this show didn't suck. Well, it doesn't suck yet. It could very well suck in the coming episodes, but I sure hope it doesn't.
Okay, friends, that's our spoiler-free review. If you want to wait, and after the ad, we're going to talk about literally every scene in the show. So if you haven't seen the show and you don't want to have literally every scene spoiled for you in a row, you might want to watch the episode before coming over to the next part. Otherwise, we'll see you on the other side of this ad. Ha 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 ha, what a charming ad.
What a charming ad. Really want to buy that or subscribe.
So as Adam already brought up earlier, the show begins. It's a cold open on a 1970s talk show set. Now, we don't know any of these characters, but it looks like when they did the exact same thing in Zack Snyder's Watchmen, it looks exactly like that. In fact, I said out loud, "Will Dr. Manhattan enter Afghanistan?" And my dad told me to shut up.
See, this is the scene that I mean, maybe I swayed you, but initially you weren't a huge fan of.
No, I thought it went on forever.
It did go on. It was a little bit longer than I figured it would be, but as I was watching this, I was thinking to myself, if you're really listening to what this guy is saying and putting it into reality of not in The Last of Us as a TV show, in the world we are currently living in, you, James, you and I are living in right now, what he's saying is truthful. Like the shit that happens could actually happen if the stage was set properly for that type of evolution, I guess, of this fungus. Like it's a possibility that we don't know yet. And that is terrifying to think about. So I thought the whole first scene was very captivating in the way they explained it and the way they ended it with that guy just kind of like, well, I guess we'll be back. Like this guy was like, oh, Jesus, you just dropped a bomb on us, literally. And I loved that. I loved that it was a departure from the show. We did not see that in the game.
Yeah, I thought it was slightly awkward. The guy's just going on and on. He's like, yeah, and then the parasite will get into your brain and probably turn you into a zombie. That'll probably eat your neighbor, and your neighbor eats two other neighbors.
Yeah, he was so chill, and I was fine with that.
And I was just imagining the host being like dude, we gotta cut to commercial.
Yeah, right.
It's like, okay, thanks for that. Fungus zombies, everybody. And now the Doobie Brothers.
The Doobie Brothers. And now the Beatles. Another thing about that scene, which I noticed immediately, was the guy who was saying all this terrible shit was the guy who played Jonathan in the Mummy movie. Just fun fact. I don't know his name, but you would recognize him if you saw the Mummy. He was the brother of Evie, that crazy drunk.
Dude.
Yeah. Yep.
Everyone from The Mummy is getting a career revival. Your next
this.
Guy who played Benny. Okay, the next scene. We're still not at the beginning of the game yet, but we cut to just before the beginning of the game, and our main character, it's Joel. He's the Mandalorian, and he looks exactly like Joel, except Joel had a full beard, and he can't grow one, and that's good representation for people who can't grow full beards, who, in my opinion, are the most discriminated against people.
It's true. America. Like me, I cannot grow a full beard. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining the Low T Last of Us podcast, where the star of the show and the hosts can't grow full beards.
We are just scruff. I believe the next scene is breakfast, and I entitled this very affectionately, Breakfast with the Millers. A wonderful and relatable expansion of the characters' familial personalities, I think. We get to see Tommy much earlier here than in the game, which I loved very much.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, it's set up kind of like Joel and Tommy's relationship and Tommy's relationship with his niece. And it was very sweet, very endearing, kind of ragging on each other. I loved this scene. I think it was a nice addition to just expand out and kind of make the inevitable scene that's coming up even that much more heartbreaking.
Yeah, the actress who plays Sarah, Joel's daughter, I think is doing a really good job here.
Yeah, for sure.
I would just say that, like, they're trying to establish a kind of mood in the beginning, like she's going around town, weird stuff is happening to her, but I don't know. I found it all to be a little bit false drama since I know what's going to happen, so I'm not expecting that, like, a zombie's going to jump out of the first door or something.
I'm curious to see, like, someone who's never seen the game or heard anything about the game, never knew anything about it, is watching this for the first time. Like, I want to know how they felt during these scenes, because we will never know, because we know what's going to happen, you know? I would love to be in that person's shoes just once to see, but sadly, I'm never going to get that. But I assume it's going to hit similarly to how we got hit when we first played the game, maybe? But I don't know. Just getting this kind of described explanation of their backstory a little bit more, I think would probably add a little bit of weight to what happens. Something that happens in the show that also is not in the game is an expansion of Sarah's day. You started saying it, she's going through her day by day. There's a couple of pivotal moments here that expands, again, the story from the game that I know with more detail, more expression of what's happening. You know, we're seeing a point of view of this girl's life. We did not get this in the game. But she's seeing more and more terrible things happening as the day goes on and is starting to realize this. She goes to the watch shop to pick up a watch. She's getting her dad's watch redone, which that's a very important part of the story, is his watch. And it kind of shows that she's a kind-hearted person. She wants to do something nice for her dad for his birthday. But, the shop owners rushed along really quickly. We got to close. You got to go home. And she closes the shop really abruptly. Something's not right. And this is where you're starting to see the turn of the music. You're starting to see more emergency vehicles on the road, and things are starting to get worse.
Yeah, this scene was really good. It reminded me of the 1970s film Invasion of the Body Snatcher, where, like, towards the beginning, the guy's just, like, going about his business, and there's, like, random panicked people running through the street.
Yeah, and first thing I thought of was Shaun of the Dead, where everyone's running past him at 1,000 miles an hour, and he's just going to the shop to get a Cornetto. Like, that's a humorous version of kind of a terrifying situation, but that's the first thing I thought of. moving on, Sarah gets home from school and she immediately goes over to the neighbor's house, the Adlers. We're seeing these neighbors. They are very neighborly with Joel
they're great.
and
I love
Sarah.
the hayseed elderly neighbors.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, hi, Joel and Sarah. We're such kind, homely neighbors, and nothing ever bad will happen to us.
Nothing, no. Yeah. But something that I thought, I mean, it was kind of foreshadowing and it was very on the nose, was they kept cutting up to really close-up shots of the grandmother, like staring off into space, getting fed and like dropping her food. And like, it was very unsettling the more they did it. And it hit a peak when Sarah was inside and she's going through these movies on the wall and she picks up a movie, and this is another thing. It's called Curtis and the Viper 2. This was actually referenced in the Last of Us Part 2 game with Ellie talking to Dina.
Curtis and the Viper 2. Oh, shit.
Yeah. And it's a movie that Joel wants to show Ellie in The Last of Us 2.
Damn.
So it just, again, a nice little homage to the games. But while she's going through these movies, probably the most unsettling moment of the show is happening behind her. Grandma sitting on the couch, totally out of focus, but you can see that she's there in the background, transforming like a werewolf, like kind of flailing, or, a fungus-infected human. But there's minimal sound, and Sarah has her back turned to her, and this is happening, and she walks out like just so unsettling and creepy and eerie. And I thought that was the most kind of like, oh God, kind of moment of this show, because that's really when you started to see stuff happening.
Well, it also really makes you wonder, because like Grandma didn't have any wounds on her. Is there something happening in this moment that causes, because like we already see like immediately after that there's like jets flying over the neighborhood, so like shit's going down.
Yeah, she knows something's happening, right?
I'm just wondering, like, we never get in the games the genesis of where the fungus came from. It's just the explanation we get at the beginning of the show. It's just a random evolution. But I wonder, like, how, like, who's patient zero and why?
Yeah,
maybe that's part of the mystery.
And they explain a little bit, like, thoughts a little bit later saying, it was in the city. People who go into the city are the ones who have been infected and bringing it back. And Sarah notes, the Adlers go into the city to bring her for her hospital visits.
So she
and things
breathed
like
in
that.
Some spores, probably. Yeah.
Well, there's no spores in this game, too. That's another, or in this show, that's another thing that's different.
But they cut that out of the show? What?
They cut spores out of the show, and it's now these tendril things. But fun fact, again, I know the original concept of the game was supposed to be tendrils, but they went with spores for one creative reason or another. So they are actually still keeping faithful to what they had written for the game, which, again, amazing that they're going to the lengths to include stuff like that in the show.
Okay, well, Adam, that's fine enough. But what about like when the characters are supposed to put on gas masks and look cool? We're not doing that anymore?
Well, the thought of that is that so much of the game takes place, in the underground tunnels where there's a lot of moisture and spores, and like that wouldn't be, I don't think that would be really good for TV. You'd be seeing everyone with a gas mask on the whole time, very impersonal. I think it was just fine that they changed that little detail. The whole, like, gotta wear a gas mask to survive, and Ellie doesn't have to wear a gas mask because she's immune. I think that's an interesting dynamic that we're losing. However, to make it work for TV, necessary evil. I think. I'm fine with it.
Just like in the game, Sarah and Joel sit down on the sofa to have a monster movie family marathon.
And she gives him the watch, which this scene was shot for shot, down to the dialogue. She gives the watch to Joel. Joel is very like, wow, why'd you do this? How'd you get money for this? And she said, I sell hardcore drugs. I sell drugs. And that's taken straight from the game. So that whole scene with them exchanging dialogue with the watch, that is directly from the game. Loved that. I was clapping out loud, like when these scenes were happening.
And I just want to say what I like about that scene in the game is that like the opening of the game is like extremely, the game studio Naughty Dog, they're probably most famous for Uncharted, and those scenes are like very Uncharted-y. Like you could imagine Nathan Drake and his girlfriend having the same I sell hardcore drugs, ha ha ha.
They do kind of in Uncharted 4. At the beginning, they're home eating like noodles on the sofa and they're kind of ragging at each other. It's very similar. Yeah.
But then that's the only part of the game that's like that, and it completely transitions. And at the time, I thought that was really brilliant, having been a fan of Uncharted. that it starts out feeling the same. Like, oh, this could be any kind of adventure game. It's
Right.
Naughty Dog, right? But
Quite different.
it's good, man. It shows the range they have as writers and
Oh my
video
God.
game writers, that is. Anyway, Joel, that is, carries his sleeping daughter up to bed because he's a good father, and then he leaves because he gets a call from his no good brother Tommy, who's back in the drunk tank again.
What an asshole.
Such a Tommy move, man.
Such a Tommy move.
Yeah, we hate Tommy on the podcast, guys.
No, I actually really love Tommy. Like Tommy, the actor who plays Tommy is probably the most accurate to the game. His voice it's so pinpoint accurate. It's crazy.
Sarah gets woken up in the dead of night because there are jets flying overhead. And a lot of other weird shit is happening too. There's spooky sounds coming from around the house. And her dad's not here, obviously. Maybe not so chill, Joel, to leave your daughter home alone at night like that. Anything could have happened, and this is literally the worst case scenario.
Yeah, right. And again, taken very similarly from the game. She's rummaging through her house looking for her dad. On her desk is a birthday card that she was intending to give her dad. And in the game, you can go up to that birthday card and look at it, and she says, oh, I forgot to give this to him. And it's literally sitting on her desk in the show, just like little details like that.
That is
why
cool,
I love it so much.
I haven't played the first one since it came out, so a lot of these are lost on me, but I appreciate them anyway. Man, the remaster is full price.
Oh, that's insane, but it's worth it. It looks amazing. Maybe I'll buy it for you if you're a good boy.
Well, thank you. You could just lend it to me. We both.
No, I don't know. I didn't buy it.
Sarah goes outside because her neighbor, the hayseed old couple, their dog is scratching at the door, and the dog's hurt, and I'm very concerned.
Yeah, dog's terrified. This dog's terrified, and she like tries to drag it back to the house, and the dog's like, "No, get off of me!" and runs away. Like, if that's not an indication that something's going wrong.
I hope the dog makes it. We don't see what happens to the dog. The dog does leave before the worst happens, which is that Sarah goes into the house. She hears Miss Adler in some kind of distress, right? So she's going in to help. It's very dark and spoopy inside. And what she finds is the old woman is eating her son, right? Or her son-in-law.
No, her daughter. So the son, Mr. Adler, the older guy, sitting on the back door with his hand clenching his jugular vein, bleeding profusely, with a terrified look on his face, and eyeing towards the bottom of the cabinets or whatever. And Sarah looks to the bottom of the cabinets, and the grandma is eating her daughter's face.
Yes, and it was very brutal and very gory. It was
very brutal. Yes, for sure.
So guys, for reasons that are totally not pathetic, I was watching this show with my elderly father, and and at this point he was like, oh, is it going to be one of these shows again? Is it going to be really gory? And I was like, well, I mean, the game's a little gory. Like, the game over screen is gory, but mostly it's like human on zombie violence or human on human violence. But yeah, this was a cut above anything I think from either game. And like you said, I thought she was like eating the old woman's hair. I did not know those were supposed to be tendrils.
I thought the same thing when I saw it on screen the first time too. I had to like pause it and like go back 4 seconds and rewatch it again. Yeah, it's like something coming out of her mouth, and that's supposed to be the tendrils or whatever. And I'm sure we'll hear more about it as it goes on, because this was just kind of supposed to be the wow factor, the scare factor, the hey, shit's going down. So I don't think they had time to explain it.
Yeah, I think they had, as a TV show, they had to do something to distinguish their zombies. Otherwise, it is just like, early on, it's just going to be Dawn of the Dead, or it is just going to be any other generic, The Walking Dead,
Right. And what is really funny about this scene is the grandmother, who is like old, decrepit and old and couldn't move by herself, like gets up on her feet and sprints towards Sarah. She doesn't walk towards her. She sprints towards her and out the door, smashes the door, falls down. Joel and Tommy are sitting there, guns toting. They just happen to get back at the right time, pointing a gun at it, see the grandma on the ground. Grandma gets up, starts sprinting again. And this is where mayhem starts to happen. Joel freaking bludgeons grandma as she runs towards him and Sarah with a freaking pipe or whatever he had. It's a wrench,
her with a wrench, which is from the games.
Yes, that's true. And I was reading something that Joel takes the wrench and like throws it on the ground, right? And people are attacking you, self-defense. Tommy's got a gun,
Right.
You'd think he would keep it, but some people are saying that he didn't keep it because in the game, your weapons will break. So you lose them after a couple of swings. So they were thinking that maybe this was a homage. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
It was weapon degradation, the worst game system of all time.
Yeah, thanks to the Legend of Zelda. I love that game so much.
What I really love is when they get into Tommy's truck to escape, his other neighbor, Denise, comes out and is like, Joel, what's happening? And Joel says, Denise, you need to get back in your house and stay. We're leaving the house to go out in my car. You stay. And then they drive away. The other two murdered old people have now reanimated, and they're chasing after the truck. Joel kind of like, Tommy like runs over them a little bit, but not really. He just like knocks them out of the way. And so they just go and immediately eat Denise.
Amazing. And like Denise and another like neighbor are looking at like, Joel, what the hell? And they like, you see the zombies attack them in the distance.
What follows is probably the best inside of a car horror movie scene ever put to film. It was amazing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So they're in the truck. This is the most accurate scene sequence to the game by far. This entire scene progression is so goddamn accurate to the game. If we went over this, the podcast would be longer than it needs to be. So we're just going to kind of highlight this. So we're talking truck driving scene, panic in the town, leading up to the inevitable sad scene of Sarah's death. So if you haven't played the game and you decided to, no, you're not going crazy. This is so incredibly accurate. I am stressing that it's so accurate to the game if you've never played it. From the camera angles inside the truck, like you said, James, the dialogue that's being said, the street signs that are being displayed is exactly the same from screenshots.
Damn.
The burning farmhouse.
Well, Adam, has anyone uploaded a comparison yet to YouTube? I guess.
Yes.
Still 24 hours.
Yeah. Yep. So people upload comparison screenshots, and it is almost a 1-to-1, give or take a couple of, little things that you can't do in real life, but it's pretty damn close.
Also in the show, it looks amazing. The effects, like when the jetliner's going overhead, it looks fucking real. The people behind the truck, I think those were all real extras.
I'm sure
there were a ton of them. And when the city gets bombed, man, it looks fucking good. It looks better than so much of what HBO has been putting out in the past like 3 or 4 years. Like they really tried it. They did their homework this time.
It's one of those things that I think they had to just swing really, really hard for the fences on this one, or else they would have failed.
Like compare this to any action scene from Westworld 4, HBO heads.
Right. Oh no! See, I haven't watched that, so I can't comment, but I can assume. But yes, like you said, the jetliner's going on. The big explosion from the plane hitting the ground, it was very similar to the explosion of the gas station in the first scene. People are in panic. There's more dialogue. It's so accurate. The car crashing, instead of them getting hit by another car, they get hit with like a piece of the jetliner that exploded out. Joel taking Sarah from underneath the car. She's got a broken ankle. They are running through the town. He's carrying Sarah. It's really epic and on the edge of your seat as you're watching it. And one of the things that I thought was really well done is whoever is playing the stuntmen of these running zombies, holy shit, man. They sold this so hard. These zombies are running into doors and slamming into carts, and it looks like that's how it would be if someone was trying to attack you and they had lost their mind. Like it just is really scary. It's terrifying when you think about it. Yeah.
Turn on any like recent episode of The Walking Dead and the zombie extras are phoning it in, bro. They got the best of the best for this one.
They absolutely did. And The Walking Dead was so good first season, and then it just got so bad. But this is a totally different level. These are people literally going crazy, and they just want to murder you, and they're running after you. And, they meet the patrol guard. Joel is holding Sarah, and now we reach the apex of this scene where they get shot at and Sarah gets hurt. And this is the heart-wrenching scene that everyone was waiting for who's played the game, and it did not fail. It evoked an epic amount of welling up of tears for me. Like I shed a tear watching this with my eyes glued to the screen. and all the feelings came rushing back to me. How did it feel for you?
I thought it was very brutal, much more terrible, actually, than even in the game. And in the game, it was horrible. But I think in the game, she got shot and died instantly. Am I wrong about that?
It was very similar.
In this one, she bleeds out, and it's horrible.
Yeah, it did a little bit in the game, yeah, for sure. And like Joel is sitting there like, oh, come on, baby girl, come on, don't do this to me. And he's literally like, talking to her, and she is like screaming to her father, like terrifying, terrible situation. And it killed me. HBO spared no expense in making sure that the fan service was plentiful through this whole show, but this scene specifically was so perfect in the game, and it was imitated so perfectly in the show. And if you think otherwise, I'm sorry, you are wrong. Go watch the show again. Go watch this game again. You will see what I'm talking about. It sets the tone that leads to the future of these characters' progressions. This is why Joel is the way he is. And something to keep in mind here, the story is incredibly human. There's ravenous fungus zombies that want to eat your face. Yeah, sure. But the human story is really the bread and butter of this entire franchise. And that is what I'm most excited about for this show, is how they deal with the human connection in a terrifying, terrible world.
I just want to say one thing because it becomes relevant again in a moment. This Joel, a little bit more brutal and amoral than game Joel. Like during the chase scene,
I think so too.
There was a young couple with a baby who were like, please help us, our car broke down. And Joel was just like, keep driving, Tommy, don't look at them.
So they did that a little bit in the game. I don't think it was as poignant as it was in the show, though. But yes, he is thinking about himself and his family, and no one else matters. So that's also something underlying, and then add on the things that happen. It's just no wonder why he's a broken guy. He's been hit with so much heartbreak.
Right. And I just like to think that family, that their car breaking down was coincidental and had nothing to do with the zombie attack. They're like, oh, we just wanted you to call AAA. Oh, they're gone, honey. Yeah. Oh, well, there seems to be a crowd of people coming. Maybe they can help us.
Oh, they're screaming at us. Why?
So after that pretty amazing opening, we cut to maybe 20 years later? Is that right?
Either 20 or 25. I honestly, it escapes me.
We're now in Boston. We get a pretty effed up scene where the local government, which is a fascist remnant of the U.S. military called Fedra, is kidnapping orphans to conduct human experimentation on them. And you wonder where this fits into the story until you find out that Joel is like one of the Axemen, and apparently he's like burning the bodies. Pretty terrible.
Yeah, that's one scene I had completely forgotten about until just now, was where they show that little girl walking up to the quarantine zone, and they take her in and they run a test, and you see that she's positive in the background, out of focus. And, the Fedra agent says, you know what, you're safe here. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to get you something to eat. They give her a shot. You're going to be fed, and then we're going to watch your favorite movie. Does that sound good? Now, pipe dream, obviously, for this woman saying this, but the kid's like, yeah, that's great. And, a couple of moments pass by, and Joel is introduced on screen, and he is motioned over to take this child because this person can't bring themselves to putting a child into a fire. And it was that girl. She's wearing the same shoes. And like that hit me a little bit more than I thought it was going to hit me. It's very dark.
And it shows that, like, basically, if you want to survive in this post-apocalypse, you pretty much have to give up all humanity.
Right. Yeah. It's very, very different.
The next scene, we're introduced to an important character named Tess. She has been beaten up and given the third degree by this local black market dealer who was supposed to sell her something, and then he welched on it. So because of that, he now thinks he has to kill her, because he's like, well, I kind of stole from you, so you'll probably kill me for that. So I'm sorry, Tess, I have to kill you first.
Yeah, it's a lawless world.
I'll just not kill you, and you let me go.
You're right.
But when she pitches that, he's like, yeah, but I think Joel will probably just kill me for having beaten you up.
And she's probably like, yeah, you're right. Which brings us to Joel and Tess being a little bit of a love interest that's very apparent. Just like the games. Again, just like the game.
This black market dealer, is like, you're a man. So it's very strongly implied, but they don't, obviously, probably because their hearts are dead, show that much affection to each other in the game.
Right. Yeah. It's just a little glimpse of, that he does actually care for her. And she has a little cut. So he wipes it down and holds her face and just little stuff like that. But in the show, they show them literally spooning, and God love Joel. He was the little spoon. So that's pretty cute. Right.
She's saved from the interrogation, or more the shakedown, when the Boston quarantine zone is attacked by terrorists called the Fireflies. I know what their deal is, but we don't really know what their deal is in the show. So, I mean, if you're only on episode 1, we won't spoil it, but they are a terrorist sect, and they have mysterious plans. And she thinks that Fedra's going to come rescue her from the terrorists, and instead Fedra just beats the shit out of her for no reason.
Yeah. Again, lawless society. Something else that's different in this version of the story is that Joel and Tess are actually, they're smugglers in the game, but they're smugglers for pills and weapons very specifically. And there is a very big evidence of drug dealing being very vibrant, even in this post-apocalyptic world, which I thought was an interesting touch that Joel was effectively a drug dealer.
Yeah, he's a drug runner.
Yeah, right.
And that's a wonderful callback to the joke that his daughter makes the night she dies. Right, exactly.
And I don't know, and I may have missed it. That could have been a little thing in the game that I just didn't pick up on, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't think they ever spell it out that they're smuggling drugs. I think they're just
I don't think so either.
All-purpose smugglers, but you know, the show answers, what are they smuggling?
Yeah, well, what are we moving? What's our package? That's pretty much what it is. It's like the transporter. You never know. You never ask what's in the box.
We then get a scene similar to the one before, but not identical. We see another little girl, the actress Bella Ramsey, and she is being similarly interrogated, but a little bit less threatening. And we assume it's the same deal, and maybe this is Fedra, but it's not clear. And she gives her name as Victoria, and they seem to be questioning her. They're trying to figure something out about her. And she has a bad toot and is a teenager, and she's cursing and saying bad things to them and flashing the finger even.
Yeah, ooh, very rebellious. Oh, I must also point out that we do know that these are the Fireflies. We do know that.
We do know that going in?
Yep, we do know this. Yep.
Yeah, so it draws a nice clear parallel here that, the Fireflies and Fedra are doing pretty similar stuff, even at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not exactly the same, but come on, pretty similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Joel goes to visit a show original character, ?
Oh, the radio operator?
Yeah, he's a radio operator in the center of town.
This scene also was not in the game, so this was added backstory to make sense of why they were trying to get a car battery. And it was to try to find his brother Tommy, who hasn't responded to radio messages in, I believe, 3 weeks. So that was, Joel is trying to, give me something, I'll give you something for information. And that's what that scene was just kind of an expansion of the backstory.
This guy is a smuggler in his own respect. He's sending in illegal radio signals, and he even has, the old woman, when Joel walk in, is, giving some nice letter from her relative. She's like, yeah, your uncle's doing great. He's so happy. Something like that.
Yeah, right.
We then see Joel going back to his very sad little apartment, which is full of curios from the days long gone. And he enters the floorboards to find a stash of a ton of drugs. He's got 2 broccoli stalks of weed in there.
Broccoli stalks.
Joel drinks from a little bottle of whiskey while looking at a map and being very sad.
Yep, he's trying to find, the radio operator man gave him some information of the last transmission and where the towers were located. So now Joel is looking at the map, trying to figure out how to get there and how he's going to do that. So he's drinking heavily, gets a little drunk.
He gets a little drunk. He washes down that liquor with 3.5 opioids.
Yeah, right.
Which any qualified doctor will tell you you should not do.
Yeah, just trying to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, this is good foreshadowing too, because he needs to do this in order to just get past his demons enough to sleep. The next day, Tess comes to see him. She's all beat up. She doesn't tell him what really happened, obviously, because she doesn't want to worry him, or he doesn't want him to try to take revenge or something like that. They don't spell it out. You just piece that together, and it's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, so I just got jumped. It's not about the car battery. It's just a coincidence, right?
Right. Nope, wrong.
Tess leaves Joel and goes to meet with a member of the Fireflies, kind of like her Firefly handler, whose name is Marlene.
Yes, Marlene, the leader of the resistance group, the Fireflies, especially in this area. I think she's like the region director of the Fireflies. And we also get a little bit of, insight into why Ellie's there. This scene was kind of evident in the game, with Marlene and Ellie, but it was slightly modified. Ellie has a greater purpose. Marlene knows this, and she's trying to work out how to move her to the next location. But without going into crazy detail, because
it's not that important, but it's a very utilitarian scene. They explain what the whole mission's going to be.
Yes, they explain what the mission's going to be and what the plan is going to be. However, that goes awry because Marlene has a run-in with the gun runner, whose name is Robert, if you didn't pick up on that. But he has a run-in with Robert. She and her deputy, or whatever you want to call her, end up surviving that, but she is very injured. She got shot or stabbed or something in the gut. So this is the scene where Joel and Ellie first meet.
Yeah, Joel meets with Victoria.
Victoria, yeah.
They don't get along.
Yeah, I think at this point, the women of the Fireflies were kind of like, we know your name is Ellie.
But, she thinks that he's a threat to her, and she fucking jumps out to stab him. And he almost shoots her in the gut.
Joe literally pushes her off to the side.
He pushes her off to the side and then immediately goes to shoot her.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, wouldn't you?
The standoff is resolved. It's just a misunderstanding. Actually, this smuggling job now, Tess and Joel are smugglers. They're smuggling this human cargo, just like in the masterpiece of cinema, The Transporter. They're going to be transporting a girl.
We referenced the transporter twice in this show already.
So, obviously Joel and Ellie don't get along. Joel is basically an empty husk of a person at this point, and Ellie angry at the world because of reasons we don't understand yet.
Puberty. Yeah.
Yeah, right. She's just a silly teenager with small, petty high school problems.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Born in an apocalypse. It's great.
They share a moment, the two of them discussing she's figured out some kind of Firefly code with the radio, right? If they play songs from one era, it means everything's safe.
The 60s means no goods. The 70s means that there is goods available, and the 80s means that the 80s was a big red X, and that means that.
Clickers.
Ellie finds out that it means that something bad is going to happen.
It means clickers. One, you blow the horn once for a ranger returning to the wall. Twice, if there's wildlings coming. 3 times, if it's the others, baby. And so if you hear Duran Duran, it's because undead monsters are coming.
Yeah. But this scene that was, after that is this shot for shot, line for line. She said, you mumble when you sleep. Hey, your watch is broken. That's all taken right from the game. Even the cinematography mimicked the game. The overhead shot of Joel sleeping on the couch, these wide shots on the side. It looked so similar to the game. Again, how accurate this show is to the game that it came from.
They have to leave in a hurry so they don't go the normal route or something else unexpected happens and they get caught by a Fedra guard. Luckily, this particular Fedra guard is one of the guys that Joel pushes drugs on. And if it would have anything else, they probably would have just got shot right there. Then he does them a favor by not killing them. He's like, yeah, guys, being arrested and thrown into a work camp is the good ending for you.
Right. But here, let me test you for the virus, just to be safe. And as they start to do this, Ellie's panicking now because obviously we know that she is immune to the virus. She stabs him in the leg just as he's about to, or what we think is he's about to test her. And Joel has a quick flashback of the earlier scene where his daughter gets killed in this very similar scenario. And he sees red, absolutely annihilates his guard with his fist. And it is really intense. And in the background, you see Ellie staring at this. You kind of get the feeling that she really likes this. This is, she's interested in this bludgeoning. Someone's actually fighting for her for the first time in a long time. And initially she does like it and is captivated, but it seems to slowly turn into something of a resigned fear as Joel gets up and moves on. But this soldier is very much dead.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And I kind of liked that it was they set up Joel's PTSD. I just think they did a little ham-fistedly.
Literally.
They should have had like the guard just kind of like look like the other guard a little bit. Instead, they cut all the way back to like his daughter's face.
I know.
Anyway,
That was a little cheesy, but I think it's fine. I'm okay with it.
And if it happened like that in the games, then I forgive it. So,
it did not happen like that in the games, but something that happened in the games that happened in the show too. After the guard gets killed, Tess picks up the virus scanner and realizes that it is red. It is positive. She has the virus. So now they start freaking out that Ellie was put with her for a reason to do whatever. And it's a very quick. They gloss over this very quickly. They move on that we're going to take her regardless, that she might be turning into a zombie soon. But she says very quickly, no, this is a week old. And then they start to get caught and run out of the thing. So they kind of just continue on. So I thought that was a little bit quick. Something else to note about this scene specifically, them navigating the broken pipes, the spotlights, the debris, it was exactly like the game. They even went as far as to show the same camera angles when they crouch down and kind of walk underneath pipes and hold, position while a spotlight goes by. It looks exactly like the game. All top notch, almost 1-to-1. Very, very happy with that.
And as they are departing Boston under cover of rain, a song starts to play on the radio, and it's Depeche Mode, which is a band from the 80s, which means they're fucked.
Bad things. Wide shot pan out from the room they were just in with this song playing. That means there's trouble. And then they continue to pan out to cracks of thunder and flashes of lightning, and they reveal the city decimated, building falling on another building, and a clicker sitting on the roof screaming out in agony right above where they're walking. And cut to black, credits roll, episode over, masterpiece has been fulfilled. This episode was so good. I don't care what anyone else says. I freaking loved this episode. It was so accurate to the game, and it made me so happy.
Yeah, I didn't think every moment of this episode was perfect, but I still, on balance, really liked it. I thought, actually, it was a much stronger first episode than we've seen from HBO in a long time, and I will say it was a much better pilot than House of the Dragon. That's for damn sure. Pilot for House of the Dragon, not so good.
No, and they had wonderful source material. I mean, it's the original writer, the creators of this are on board with the show. The front runner who did Chernobyl is on it, which has a very similar kind of look and feel. They really did have every ingredient for success, and if it failed, it would have been probably the worst HBO failing ever. I mean, the amount of money they invested in this show was excessive, and I think it has been put to good use so far. And the previews for the next coming up episodes look also very good. And I did even catch the behind the scenes piece at the end. Very cool on just how they explained it and, why they made the choices they did with his daughter in the beginning, why they added a few things. Definitely worth a watch if you want a little bit more insight to the show.
And just for the people who know, like, where the story of season 1 is going, and the people who played the second game and know, like, where the story ends up in the future, here are the lyrics to the Depeche Mode song, which they were playing over the end. Mm-hmm. I'm taking a ride with my best friend. He's taking me where I want to be. Promises me I'm safe. I hope he never lets me down. Hope he never lets me down. Never let me down. Never let me down. Damn, bro. Very sad. Very dark.
Oh yeah. the weight of those lyrics that I didn't even understand were happening because I was captivated by that wide shot make it so much more powerful. Thank you for that, James.
I just thought that was really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this, man, and they're trying. Yeah. I think it goes to show, like what you were saying, like when they hire, not to be a loser, when they hire auteur filmmakers instead of blockbuster filmmakers, you get a better result. And this is what happens, when the show isn't run by the two dudes who made X-Men Origins Wolverine, Like,
It's true. They really, the recipes was there for success, and I think that they nailed it. And the world is also seeing the same thing. The first episode has 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, although I hate Rotten Tomatoes. That's what people go off of, I guess. A huge critical acclaim, massive win for this show, and I truly, truly, truly hope that it continues. I love this. I love this property so much, and I can't wait to see what they do with it.
So I didn't really come up with too much in terms of theory since I know everything already, but
Sure.
I think it's interesting, like these planes are coming down simultaneously while their shit seems to be happening all over the country. It seems like there was probably some kind of mass contamination event where all the patient zeros.
Yeah, it hit their time.
And the timer goes off. And then zombie time.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, they're progressing at the same rate, right? Or you would assume it's similar rates of progression inside the human body. I mean, it makes sense, if the pilot turns into a freaking zombie, that plane's down. It's going. I mean, that pilot goes in the city all the time, right?
Right, and we saw with Grandma that, like, being a clicker gives you super strength and agility.
Well, she wasn't even a clicker yet. That was the first stage. Right. She was just I don't know what the official name is. There's a runner, and then there's stalkers, and then it's clicker and bloater, which we see a preview of in the trailer, and I am excited for that.
Yeah, me too. I like this a lot. I'm jazzed for like a new good thing on HBO finally. Yeah,
I know.
House of the Dragon was fine.
House of the Dragon was fine. Go listen to those shows.
And Adam and I will be back next week. We're going to talk about episode 2 of The Last of Us. This episode, by the way, in case you wanted to know, was called When You're Lost in the Darkness.
Ooh. Find the light.
And the next episode is called Infection. Okay.
Well, okay.
Infected.
That's
one last thing to say before we go, Adam. Are you familiar with the story of Typhoid Mary?
No. I've heard of that, but I don't know anything about it.
So, in the late 20th century, maybe the late 19th century, 1800s maybe, I think. I don't know all the facts. I know the basic broad strokes, guys. Stay with me here.
Fair.
There was a woman. She was a cook. And there was this bizarre thing where, like, everywhere she would go, there would be an outbreak of typhoid.
Oh.
And so, like, they were able to track, like, wherever Mary Malone is going, there's an outbreak of this extremely contagious and deadly disease, typhoid. What the fuck is going on? The only thing they were able to determine, because she seemed perfectly healthy, is that she was a carrier of the disease who was also immune to it. So it could never kill her, but she would always just be carrying it, passing it to anyone she happened to come into contact with.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, right? Isn't that crazy? It was a medical phenomena that we have not really seen since, where you are immune to something and carry it just the same and pass it on to everybody. And that's what's going on here. With Ellie, she has the zombie virus. The spores are in her blood. The test said so, but she's immune. She's immune.
We don't know if she passes it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if we'll ever find that out. Yeah. Which would be interesting to see.
I thought that was going to happen in The Last of Us 2, but no.
That'd be interesting. That'd be interesting to see. I like that theory. That'd be an interesting one if they twisted it a little bit and had Ellie bite someone and they turn into a zombie.
No spoilers, but at the end of the second game, there's a part where Ellie is like trapped in peril by a bad guy, and she's kind of in a Burmese tiger trap. And I was like, what if she bites him? Would that work?
Yeah, right. Oh, that's great.
In any case, guys, thanks for listening, old listeners and new. Come back, and next week it's episode 2, Infected. I hope it's going to be just as good.
Same.
I wonder how many episodes of the show there are going to be.
10.
Anybody have that information? 10. Wow.
10.
It's a 10-episode season. I thought those were gone forever.
And it's not a miniseries like HBO typically does with 10, like Chernobyl. There is probably going to be a season 2. It hasn't been announced yet. It hasn't been released, but there's a second game already done, so I would imagine
season 1 is going to go all the way to the end of the first game.
No. Oh, all the way to the first game.
I'll tell you, no, I think it's going to, the winter section of the game.
I don't know. I think it's gonna end up in the last into the final scenes of the game, because I was so quick that I couldn't confirm it. I could have sworn I saw her in a hospital gown, and that's towards the end of the game.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If they go all the way, that would be amazing.
Ideal. It would be ideal.
On top of having one of the best, like, inside of a car horror movie scenes,
so good.
I think probably the second best would probably be War of the Worlds, but this one definitely beat it out.
That's true. That's a good one.
This was also just, like, easily the best thing Sony Pictures Television has ever come out with by leagues and miles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uncharted, great property, terrible movie.
Well, that was Sony Pictures.
Yeah,
film,
I know.
Right.
But still, it's a PlayStation game that they try to adapt to the screen, and so it's going to always carry that with it.
So, okay, how do we wrap this up? All right, guys, thanks for listening. Next week, now, thank you all our patrons. Here's your credits. Join the Patreon, guys. You can have your name in the credits, and you can talk to me and Adam.
Hey, this would be great.
You can send selfies to me and Adam, and we'll have to look at them, because we're contractually obligated to look in the chat. I don't know who the patrons are to you.
Oh, no, I have no idea. Ryan usually has them.
Yeah, it's Ryan's job. Okay, thanks, patrons. You know who you are. We appreciate you.